Hey there, welcome. Tonight, we're looking at Odin's genius idea to hang himself on the world tree. Because, when you're the Allfather and want wisdom, self-inflicted tree suspension somehow feels like the logical next step. It's a story about pain, knowledge, and, probably, some really bad decisions. Now, get comfortable, and let's begin. Before Odin gets impatient waiting on the tree. You stand beneath the great world tree, Yggdrasil, a towering, almost impossibly ancient ash stretching its branches into the heavens, its roots tangled deep into the realms beneath. It's not just any tree, mind you. This is the cosmic axis, the spine of the Norse universe. Worlds hang from its boughs like ornaments on a celestial Christmas tree. Midgard, Asgard, and more. It's a place of life and death, of magic and fate, where the very fabric of existence seems to throng with quiet power. Now imagine the god standing there, Odin, the Allfather himself, not a regal, untouchable deity in shining armor, but a restless seeker, always hungry for more. Knowledge, wisdom, secrets hidden behind the veils of the unknown. If there were a celestial library card, Odin would have maxed it out decades ago. You might think, well, gods have it easy. They probably just Google the answers. But no, Odin's quest for knowledge is, well, let's call it old school. He doesn't just want answers handed to him. He's ready to pay the price. And by price, I mean a very dramatic 9-day-long, no food, no water, hanging from a tree kind of price. Not your average sacrifice, even by mythological standards. So why would Odin, this supreme god of war, poetry and runes, decide that the best way to learn the secrets of the runes was to willingly hang himself on Yggdrasil? What twisted sense of wisdom whispers, hey, self-torture is definitely the way to go? And how exactly does one learn from a set of mysterious symbols carved into wood and stone while dangling mid-air? Before you jump to conclusions, let me just say, this isn't some ancient Viking version of an extreme sport or a bet gone wrong. It's a deeply symbolic, ritualistic act, a kind of cosmic self-experiment. Odin's sacrifice is a story woven with threads of pain, endurance, and the raw hunger for knowledge that even gods find maddening. You feel the chill of the wind rustling through Yggdrasil's leaves as Odin tightens his noose, piercing his own side with his spear. The spear he calls Gungnir, because naming your weapons is apparently the Norse equivalent of personalizing your smartphone case. The world grows quiet, and the air feels heavy with anticipation. Hanging there, Odin is suspended, not only physically, but metaphysically, between life and death, between ignorance and enlightenment. For 9 days and 9 nights, he neither eats nor drinks, trapped in that liminal space where pain and revelation dance dangerously close. Imagine the discomfort. Except you're a god, so maybe it's a bit less uncomfortable. Probably not. In those long hours of isolation, the runes whisper their secrets. These runes, strange, angular letters that seem to hold more than just sounds, but magic itself, slowly reveal themselves to Odin. They are not mere letters, but keys to the cosmos, a code of creation and destruction, life and fate. So here we are, at the very beginning of this strange, a god hanging from the cosmic tree, trading agony for knowledge that would shape the worlds to come. It's a story about sacrifice, yes, but also about the thirst to understand the unseen. A thirst so fierce, it pushes the Allfather to the edge. As you listen, keep in mind, have you ever chased after something so hard, so obsessively, that you lost sight of everything else? Perhaps you haven't hung from a tree for 9 days, and let's hope you never do. But we all know what it means to pay a price for knowledge or a dream, and that's just the start. Odin was about to stab himself in the chest and hang himself from a tree. Nothing like a good, old-fashioned, self-inflicted divine impalement to kick off the pursuit of forbidden knowledge. So there he stood, beneath Yggdrasil. No cheering crowds, no prophecies, pouting priests, not even a raven for moral support. Just wind, bark, and the silence of a cosmos that doesn't hand out wisdom cheaply. Odin took a deep breath, muttered something probably dramatic. He's a god, after all. He drove his spear straight through his own side. Then he climbed the tree, or perhaps willed himself up it, and hung himself high among the branches. 9 days and 9 nights. That's how long he swayed there, alone, pierced and bleeding, denied food and drink. The Norse didn't do halfway pain. This wasn't metaphorical suffering. This was torment by design. Odin wasn't dabbling in symbolic hardship. He was gambling his divine essence for insight no god had dared reach for. Now, imagine this scene for a moment. There's Odin, the Allfather, Lord of the Aesir, hanging in the cold wind, every second dragging like an age. His vision begins to fray. The stars melt. Time distorts. He sees things, not visions of beauty or comfort, but of unraveling. The 9 realms flicker like dying embers. He sees death not as an end, but as a veil. He hears voices, not of gods, but of something older, stranger. Whispered secrets claw their way through the darkness, half-formed, half-screamed. Runes, not yet born, twist like worms beneath his eyelids. The tree creaks, it moans, it drinks his blood. Somewhere between night 5 and 6, Odin slips. Not physically, but spiritually. He is no longer Odin the god, but Odin the question. His identity peels away, layer by layer. Who is he without his name, his power, his throne? What remains when the body is numb and thought itself begins to flicker like candlelight? By night 7, the hallucinations deepen. He remembers things he never lived, memories of other lives, other deaths. He watches himself die again and again, always alone, always searching. He feels every version of himself failing to grasp the answer. But he doesn't give up, because that is the shape of him. That is his name. Not Odin, not one eye, but Seeker. On the 9th night, just before the dawn, the world breaks. There is no sound, just a weight, crushing and illuminating at once. He does not find the runes, they find him. They do not appear gently. They invade, symbols, sounds, shapes, screaming truths that don't speak to ears, but to the marrow, a logic that predates language. The runes coil through his body and etch themselves into his soul like fire carving ice. He sees their names, Fehu, Uruz, and Thurisid, not as letters, but as forces. Each one a law of the universe, masquerading as a scratch on wood. And just like that, he understands. Not everything, no, but enough to fall. Odin drops from the tree. He crashes to the ground, broken. Not in body, but in the way something breaks when it becomes something else. He does not scream. He breathes, he bleeds, and he knows. He knows the price. He knows the runes. He knows himself. The moment after, awakening in the void, when Odin fell, it wasn't the fall that mattered. Not the drop from bark to earth. Not the thud that echoed through the roots of Yggdrasil. But the moment in between. The brief breath between pain and awareness. That instant where everything shifted. He awoke, but not in the way mortals do. There was no gasp, no fluttering eyelids, no groggy mumble. He emerged. It was as though reality had unzipped itself and handed him back the reins with a sly smile. Everything looked the same. Tree, sky, ground, but felt completely different. The wind now had edges. The bark hummed. His breath stirred cymbals in the air, and the world around him thrummed like a harpstring just plugged. He had touched something ancient, and now it touched everything. Odin lay still for a while, not from exhaustion, but from sheer weight. The kind of gravity that has nothing to do with mass and everything to do with meaning. He could see the runes, even with his eyes closed. He could feel them shift beneath his skin like veins, rearranging themselves to spell something. And he laughed. Not a mad laugh, not a triumphant one, just a small, exhausted chuckle that said, "Oh, so that's what it takes." And then the questions began. Not the petty kind, not what's for dinner, or who left the meat out. No, these were the kind that claw at the base of your mind, like a cat trying to get out of a locked room. What are these symbols? What laws do they bend? Why did they feel like memories I never made? The runes weren't just letters, they were moments. Each one held echoes of battles, births, deaths, storms, and silences. Fehu wasn't just wealth, it was the sound of hooves thundering on wet grass. Urus were strength, not gym strength, but the kind that makes mountains shrug off glaciers. Thurissus was chaos, wrapped in a grin, a thorn that bleeds gods. As Odin stood, the wind whispered around him. Not words, exactly, but invitations, to carve, to speak, to shape. He wasn't just a bearer of knowledge, now, he was a maker of it. But power never comes alone. Alongside it slithered doubt. Had he really learned the runes, or had they learned him? He looked down at his hands. They were shaking slightly, not from fear, but anticipation. They wanted to write, to etch, to test, and somewhere deep inside, a voice, maybe his, maybe not, said, use them, but wisely. And that's when it hit him. This wasn't the end of the ordeal. It was the beginning. Because knowledge, true knowledge, doesn't arrive gift-wrapped. It arrives on fire. It asks for things, sacrifices, not the blood kind. Well, not always, but the kind that demands you change, adapt, let go. You don't just hold the runes, you become them. So Odin rose fully, a little slower than before, a little more deliberate. His spear leaned beside him like it had been waiting. He took it, not as a weapon, but as a quill. It was time to write, to carve, to test the truths that had been burned into his soul. The world hadn't changed, but he had, and that was enough to change everything. So you've already seen Odin hanging on that cosmic tree, paying the ultimate price. But what exactly are these runes he's after? They're not just some random squiggles or ancient graffiti. The runes are the Norse alphabet, yes, but with a twist. They're magic. Think of them like the original secret code, but instead of hackers trying to break it, it's the Allfather himself who's cracking it wide open through a brutal spiritual boot camp. These symbols were carved into stones, weapons, bones, and wood, and each one was believed to hold a special power. Some runes could curse your enemies, others could protect you in battle. Some might even help you predict the future. Basically, they're the Norse version of having a cheat code for life, death, and everything in between. But why hang yourself for 9 days to learn what are basically magical letters? Because the runes are not just letters. Each one is like a little universe of meaning and magic packed into a symbol. Imagine each rune as a door, and Odin is hanging there, waiting for each door to creak open, revealing the secrets hidden inside. The Norse believed that the runes held cosmic power, a kind of primordial force tied to creation itself. In fact, the word rune roughly means secret or mystery, and if there's one thing Odin loved, it was secrets, especially the kind you have to bleed for. Now, it wasn't just about learning to read or write, it was about understanding. The runes were said to be keys to the cosmos, a kind of divine alphabet that could alter reality itself. Each rune symbolized an idea, a force, or a natural phenomenon, like strength, joy, or the sea. When combined, they could be used to cast spells, divine the future, or bless a sword before battle. Odin's 9 days hanging on were his initiation into this hidden world. He didn't just memorize the shapes, he internalized their meanings and powers. Picture it like a cosmic download, where every symbol whispered its secrets into his mind and soul. It's like he got the ultimate cheat sheet, but only after paying in blood, pain, and a near-death experience. One of the most fascinating things about the runes is their connection to fate and destiny. Norse mythology is famously fatalistic. The gods and men alike are bound to a predetermined fate, and yet, with the runes, there's a sense that some things can be influenced, even changed. The runes weren't a way to escape fate, but a way to navigate it, like having a map when everyone else is stumbling blindfolded. Think about that for a moment. Here's a god who's willing to die hanging from the world tree just to learn how to read these cosmic road signs. The runes offered him insight into the forces shaping his world, and maybe, just maybe, a way to bend those forces to his will. But Odin's sacrifice wasn't just a private quest. The the runes would become a gift to gods and mortals alike. After he mastered them, Odin shared the runes with the world through poetry, magic, and wisdom. Warriors would carve runes on their swords to call on strength. Poets would invoke them for inspiration. Seers would read the runes to glimpse the future. The runes became a language of power that shaped the culture, religion, and even daily life of the Norse people. And yet, despite this gift, the runes remained mysterious and dangerous. Their power could not be taken lightly. Using runes wrongly might bring curses instead of blessings. Misreading their secrets could lead to ruin. It's a reminder that even the greatest knowledge demands respect and humility. So, as Odin dropped from Yggdrasil's branch, weak but enlightened, he was carrying more than just letters, where the written word and mystical power intertwined. Next, we'll explore some of these runes in detail, what they meant, how they were used, and why they mattered so much to Odin and the Norse people. But for now, think about this. What secrets would you risk everything to uncover? And what price would you pay for knowledge that changes everything? So Odin has the runes now, not just carved on bark or whispered in riddles, but alive inside him. The question is, what next? He's no longer just a god. He's a craftsman of cosmic code, a hacker of reality itself. The first thing he does is touch, not just with his fingers, but with his will. The runes shimmer beneath his skin like secret maps folded into his flesh. He draws one in the air, Fehu, the rune of wealth and vitality. It sparks, crackling with raw energy. It's not just a symbol, it's a force that moves the air, bends fate, and sings of abundance. He carves it into a piece of wood, then into a stone, then into the sky itself. With every mark, he feels the power ripple outward, like dropping a pebble into the stillness of the cosmos. The world answers back, sometimes subtly, sometimes with a thunderous clap. But the runes are tricky. They are not toys. Each carries a price, a hidden edge. Use Fehu for greed, and it turns venomous. Wield Uruz, the rune of strength, with arrogance, and it crushes the bearer. Odin learns quickly. The runes don't just obey, they respond. He experiments, he tests, he learns their language, how to whisper to them, how to command without commanding. Slowly, the knowledge seeps in. The runes are not static letters. They are living ideas, ancient spirits wrapped in form. At night, the runes glow faintly on his skin, pulsing like a heartbeat. He knows they are watching, waiting, judging. And Odin, he is ready. Because if wisdom demands sacrifice, mastery demands patience, and sometimes a little madness, the price of power. So Odin's got the runes inside him now, glowing faintly like a constellation tattooed beneath his skin. But having the power is one thing, mastering it is another. The runes don't hand out their secrets like candy on Halloween. Nope, they're more like that mysterious, unpredictable neighbor who occasionally throws fireworks in your yard just to keep you guessing. At first, Odin treats the runes like curious toys. He traces their shapes in the dirt, hums their names under his breath, and waits for something, anything, to happen. Sometimes the air crackles, sometimes a breeze picks up. Other times, he's met with silence, so thick it could be cut with a sword. The runes, it turns out, have a mind of their own. One chilly morning, he tries Fehu, the rune of wealth and vitality. Odin focuses, willing the rune to bring life to a withering patch of grass. For a moment, the earth seems to respond. Green shoots push upward like tiny fists rising in defiance. But then the grass snaps back, curling black at the edges. Not quite what he expected. Frustrated but undeterred, Odin pushes on. Uruz, the rune of strength and courage, calls to him next. He etches it carefully onto a stone, feeling its power hum beneath his fingers. Wield it wisely, the runes whisper. Misuse it, and it becomes a double-edged sword. With a burst of confidence, Odin summons its energy, only to stagger back, overwhelmed by a surge that nearly topples him. Each rune carries a risk, sometimes subtle, sometimes startling. And Odin's learning fast that every gift from the cosmos comes with a price tag. It's not just physical tolls, either. The runes dig deep into his mind and spirit. Days after his experiments, he finds himself lost in thought, caught in dizzying loops of riddles and half-glimpsed visions. Shadows flicker at the edge of his sight. Sleep becomes a fragile thing. There's the time he attempts to heal a wounded stag with the rune alges, a symbol of protection and defense. The runes glow a gentle blue on his palm, and Odin murmurs the incantation. The stag's limp eases, only to vanish suddenly into the forest, startled and wild-eyed. Healing, it seems, isn't just about fixing the body, but also respecting the wild spirit. These early experiments come with more than frustration. They come with lessons carved in hardship and humility. Odin starts to see the runes as more than magical glyphs. They are entities, living forces that demand respect, patience, and balance. He can't force their power. He must learn to converse with them, to listen as much as command. This learning curve is steep and often painful. When Odin overreaches, attempting to peer too far into the future with Anstus, the rune of communication and divine inspiration, the visions overwhelm him. Visions of possible futures, some bright, many bleak, swirl around him like storm clouds, disorienting and endless. He staggers, gasping for breath, reminded that knowledge isn't always a blessing. There's a quiet melancholy to this phase. Odin, the proud Allfather, humbled before forces older than time, he reflects on the irony. The pursuit of wisdom has made him vulnerable, unsure, sometimes afraid. But it's this vulnerability, this willingness to learn and fail, that begins to transform him. The runes teach him patience. They teach him humility. They teach him that mastery is not control, but harmony. And so Odin embraces the slow grind. Days turn into weeks. He carves runes into wood, stone, bone, and even air. He whispers to them in dreams. He scratches riddles into the bark of Yggdrasil itself. With every mark, every attempt, he deepens his bond with these ancient forces. The cosmic dance between seeker and knowledge continues, sometimes graceful, often awkward, but always forward. The power of the runes. After enduring the long, harrowing trial of hanging on Yggdrasil and embracing the demanding tutelage of the runes, Odin emerged, transformed. No longer just a god seeking power for power's sake, he now bore within him the secrets of the cosmos, the runes, ancient symbols that pulsed with creation's very essence. But knowledge, as anyone who's ever tried to assemble IKEA furniture knows, isn't just about having the manual. It's about how you use it. Odin understood this better than most. The runes were far more than cryptic marks or magical incantations. They were living forces woven into the fabric of reality itself. Each rune held a particular energy, a function, a secret waiting to be unlocked. Take Fehu. It wasn't just wealth in the obvious gold in the coffer sense. It was vitality, the life force that surges through all living things. Uru's wasn't just brute strength, but raw, untamed power, like the wild ox that couldn't be broken, but could be understood. Ansu's, the rune of communication, was less about mere speech and more about the flow of divine inspiration, the connection between mortals and gods. Armed with this understanding, Odin set out to share the runes. But as you might expect from a god who loves a challenge, he didn't simply hand them over with a, "Here you go, have fun." No, there were tests, riddles wrapped in enigmas, obstacles hidden beneath layers of meaning. Because the runes weren't for just anyone. They were gifts for those who could wield them wisely. First, Odin taught the Aesir gods how to call upon the runes' powers to protect their realms and strengthen their spirits. Thor, the thunder god, took 2 Urus like a hammer to an anvil, channeling the raw force into his thunderous strikes and indomitable courage. Freya, goddess of love and fertility, found herself drawn to Berkana, the rune of birth and renewal, weaving its magic into the cycles of life and nature. Even Loki, the ever unpredictable trickster, found ways to manipulate the runes to his chaotic advantage. A clear reminder that power, like fire, can warm or burn, depending on who holds it. But Odin's reach didn't stop with the gods. The runes were meant to flow into Midgard, the realm of men, so that mortals might glimpse the mysteries of the divine and shape their destinies. However, Odin knew all too well that power without wisdom was a dangerous thing. Those who wielded the runes without reverence risked disaster. So the runes came veiled, their meanings layered in riddles and poems, their power hidden beneath the surface, available only to those who sought them with true intent. Seers and shamans became the first human conduits of the runes. They carved the symbols onto bones, stones, and wood, calling upon the runes for divination and protection. The runes began to shape everyday life. Farmers inscribed them on plow handles to bless their crops. Warriors etched them onto swords and shields, hoping to imbue their weapons with strength and courage. Poets wove the runes into their verses, calling forth inspiration and memory. Yet the runes' dual nature was never far from sight. They were not just tools of creation, but also of destruction. They mirrored the heart of their wielder. A brave soul might channel Sewillow to summon the sun's light and victory, while a cruel one might twist Thuris's into a weapon of chaos. This delicate balance was the heart of the rune's power. Odin, watching from the halls of Asgard, understood the ebb and flow of this power. Knowledge was never a static gift. It was a living force, moving, evolving, shifting hands and hearts. The runes would continue to shape the worlds, sometimes for good, sometimes for ill, but always with the potential to change the course of fate itself. In this, the runes reflect us all. They hold a mirror to our intentions, our desires, our fears, and in the end, perhaps the greatest mystery of all is how we choose to wield the power we hold. With the runes firmly in his grasp, Odin knew that their power was too great to be carelessly scattered. The knowledge had to be passed on, but not all were ready or worthy to wield such forces. So, like any cautious teacher, he wrapped the teachings in riddles, symbols, and mysteries. Odin became the patron of the seers, the Volvas, and the Skalds, the poets and prophets who could interpret and carry the runes beyond the realms of gods and men. These individuals were initiates, chosen or drawn to the runes' enigmatic call, entrusted with secrets layered deep beneath layers of metaphor. The runes weren't simply a system of writing. They were a magical language, a tool for shaping reality. Each symbol was an idea, a power, an act. Writing a rune was like planting a seed of intention in the world, with consequences that could ripple far beyond the scribe's immediate desire. Through these secret teachings, the runes began to weave themselves into human culture. They were used for protection, inscribed on amulets, shields, and weapons. They were used for divination, cast upon the earth to reveal hidden truths. They were used for magic, spoken in spells, sung in chants, carved into talismans. But the knowledge was fragmented and guarded. It was never meant for the masses, at least not all at once. The initiation into the runes required dedication, wisdom, and a willingness to accept both their light and dark facets. Some sought the runes for power, to bend fate, to control others, to summon forces beyond human reckoning. Others sought them for wisdom, to understand the cosmos, the self, and the delicate balance between chaos and order. Over time, this duality shaped the mythos around the runes. Stories spread of those who used the runes to heal and protect, and tales of those who were consumed by their own ambition, falling into madness or ruin. This spreading of the runes echoes Odin's own journey, the seeker who suffered, learned, and changed, but who always knew that the gift came with a price. The runes were not just a tool or a language. They were a test of character and will. Even in the modern world, echoes of these ancient secrets remain. From mystical alphabets to esoteric traditions, the spirit of Odin's sacrifice and the rune's power still captivates and inspires. The legacy of Odin's sacrifice is not just the runes themselves, but the ongoing quest to understand and respect the forces they represent. It's a journey of patience, courage, and humility, one that anyone who seeks wisdom must undertake. And so the story continues, a thread woven through time and space, inviting each of us to listen, learn, and perhaps carve our own runes into the tapestry of existence. The runes' role in shaping destiny and magic. By now, Odin's gift, the runes, had become far more than mere symbols etched into wood or stone. They were the very keys to fate, the underlying code that wove the tapestry of existence. But as with all powerful tools, how the runes were used mattered deeply. They could guide destinies, unlock hidden potential, or unravel the fabric of reality itself. In Norse culture, the runes weren't just a language or an art. They were an active force in magic, cider, as the ancients called it. Through the runes, shamans, seers, and sorcerers could peer into the fog of the future, or manipulate the energy surrounding the 9 realms. These practitioners carved runes into amulets for protection, cast them in divination to discern hidden paths, and inscribed them on weapons to bolster courage and strength. But the runes were notoriously tricky. They demanded respect and deep understanding. You couldn't just scribble a rune and expect miracles. Each rune carried multiple meanings, layered with history, myth, and intention. Using them poorly was like trying to pilot a storm with a kiddie paddle. You might get wet, and you might get hurt. One of the runes central to this magical interplay was Hagalaz, the rune of disruption and transformation. It represented the forces of chaos, hailstorms that could devastate crops, but also cleanse the land for new growth. Magicians used it carefully, knowing that disruption could break old patterns, but also bring destruction if unleashed recklessly. Another vital rune was Algiz, the symbol of protection. Often depicted like an outstretched hand or a shield, Algiz was a beacon in the dark. Warriors carved it on their armor, parents on their children's amulets, shamans on ritual tools. It wasn't just about physical defense. It was about spiritual safeguarding, a ward against unseen threats from the chaotic void. Then there was Sewillow, the rune of the sun and victory. This rune was a reminder that light follows darkness, that hope and success are born from struggle. It was a rune of guidance, invoked by travelers, warriors, and those facing great challenges. To hold Sewillow was to carry a spark of divine light in the heart. But as much as the runes empowered, they also mirrored the wielder's inner self. The same rune could bring healing or harm, depending on the heart behind it. A rune cast with love and wisdom could mend broken spirits, while one thrown with malice or ignorance could tear reality apart. Odin's gift was not just a set of magical tools, but a profound lesson. Power is neutral. It is our choices, intentions, and respect for the forces we engage with that shape the outcome. This relationship between rune magic and destiny gave rise to countless sagas and legends, stories of heroes who called upon the runes to alter their fate, of sorcerers who learned the hard way that the runes do not suffer fools gladly, and of the eternal dance between order and chaos, light and shadow. The runes became a living tradition passed down through generations, whispered in secret circles, etched into the cultural memory of Norse peoples. They were not merely relics of the past, but active players in the unfolding drama of life. And even now, in the modern age, their echoes linger in mysticism, literature, and the human fascination with symbols and secrets. The runes remind us that beneath the surface of the world lies a deeper order, waiting to be understood, respected, and honored. The wisdom and responsibility of the runes. As Odin's story with the runes unfolds, it becomes clear that these symbols are not just about magic or power. They are about wisdom, balance, and responsibility. The runes teach that every gift comes with a cost, every insight with a challenge, and every act of creation with a shadow lurking nearby. The ancient Norse understood this deeply. To truly master the runes meant more than memorizing their shapes or chanting their names. It demanded a transformation of the self, a willingness to face the unknown within and without. Odin's own ordeal, hanging on Yggdrasil for 9 days and nights, was the ultimate test of this. With the runes, knowledge wasn't something to hoard selfishly or wield to dominate others. It was a force that connected all things: gods, men, nature, and the cosmos. The runes linked the microcosm with the macrocosm. They reminded their bearers that to seek wisdom without humility was to risk losing it altogether. This is why the runes were often veiled in riddles and layered meanings. They weren't a simple cheat code to the universe. Instead, they invited seekers to reflect, meditate, and grow. To unlock the true power of a rune, you had to understand its many facets: the joy and sorrow, creation and destruction, light and darkness it represented. Take Jera, the rune of the harvest and cycles. It's easy to think of it as just good crops or success, but Jera's deeper lesson is patience and acceptance. The understanding that all things have seasons. Sometimes you plant, sometimes you wait, sometimes you harvest, sometimes you endure the harsh winter, knowing that spring will come again. Or consider Owa's, the rune of the yew tree, and endurance. It symbolizes protection, but also death and rebirth. A reminder that transformation often requires letting go, sometimes in painful ways. To hold Ios meant embracing change and finding strength in adversity. Odin's journey with the runes wasn't just about gaining power, it was about embodying these truths. As the Allfather, he became not just a god of war or wisdom, but a guide for those willing to walk the thorny path of self-discovery. This lesson carried forward through Norse culture, shaping the way runes were taught and used. They were tools for healing, divination, magic, yes, but always with an emphasis on respect, ethics, and balance. To misuse the runes was to invite chaos, madness, or worse. Tales abound of those who delved too greedily or arrogantly into their mysteries, only to be undone by their own hubris. The runes themselves seemed to judge, not with malice, but with the natural consequence of imbalance. This is a powerful reminder for us today. In a world obsessed with quick fixes and shortcuts, the runes teach patience, humility, and reverence. They urge us to approach knowledge as a lifelong journey, not a destination. So, what does all this mean for you, the modern seeker? The runes invite us to look inward, to recognize the forces at play in our lives, and to wield our own power responsibly. Whether or not you believe in their mystical origins, the principles embedded in their stories resonate deeply: honoring cycles, respecting nature, embracing transformation. Odin's sacrifice and the gift of the runes remain a timeless metaphor. They challenge us to confront our limits, to seek wisdom beyond the obvious, and to understand that true power arises not from domination, but from harmony with the universe's rhythms. In this way, the runes are more than ancient symbols. They are a call to awareness, a whisper from the past, urging us to walk the path of wisdom with courage and care. Odin's legacy and the enduring power of the runes. By now we see Odin's sacrifice and his gift of the runes as more than myth or magic. They are a lasting legacy, a beacon across time, reminding us what it means to seek, to suffer, and to understand. The story ends, but the ripple effects continue. Odin's ordeal is the archetype of the seeker's journey, venturing into the unknown, facing sacrifice, embracing transformation, and returning changed. His discovery of the runes was not an endpoint, but a beginning, a toolset for navigating the mysteries of life, death, and destiny. Throughout history, the runes have inspired poets, warriors, mystics, and scholars alike. They survived the fall of gods and the rise of empires, weaving into folklore, art, and even modern pop culture. From Viking ships' carvings to contemporary tattoo designs, the runes remain symbols of mystery, power, and ancient wisdom. Yet their true strength lies not in their visual appeal, but in their philosophy. The balance between light and shadow, knowledge and humility, power and responsibility. Odin's story is a reminder that wisdom demands courage, and that to grasp the deepest truth, one must be willing to endure, to question, and to change. Today, as we look back on Odin's sacrifice, we might see it as a metaphor for our own quests, whether intellectual, spiritual, or personal. We all hang on the cosmic tree in some way, wrestling with doubt, pain, and the search for meaning. And, like Odin, we must learn to listen to the silent runes whispered on the winds of time. So, what does this mean for you? How might you carry the runes' legacy forward? Is it in seeking your own knowledge, in honoring cycles of change, or simply in the quiet courage to face the unknown? Feel free to share your thoughts and reflections in the comments below, because the story of Odin and the runes is not just his, but ours to explore and interpret. And there you have it, the story of Odin's sacrifice and the birth of the runes, a tale of pain, perseverance, and profound discovery. It reminds us that knowledge is never free, and true wisdom often demands a price. But in the end, it is that very sacrifice that shapes us, molds us, and leads us toward understanding. Thanks for staying with me through this journey into Norse mythology's depths. If you found something meaningful here, maybe consider subscribing to keep exploring these ancient stories together. Until next time, may your own path be a little clearer, your curiosity a little stronger, and your spirit ready for whatever mysteries lie ahead. Good night.